So good evening, we are still outside an absolutely massive warehouse. This is an old newspaper distribution warehouse and we are here at Storehouse, the new immersive experience from Sage and Jester. Don't know what it's like inside, I don't know if there's anything scary or dark. It does say there's some periods of darkness, themes of horror and, well, not themes of horror, but themes of murder and sexual stuff. So we're going to find out. We're going to go inside. It was a bloody long walk to get here from Deptford. It is in the middle of nowhere, but yeah, we'll find out what's inside this absolutely ginormous building. So we're going to go inside Storehouse. We're not allowed to film in there, so we'll let you know when we come out. Okay, well, you can probably tell we're not wearing the same things we were wearing when we went in, and that's because it was so hot in London. And to get to Storehouse, it's about a 20-minute walk from Deptford Station. On one of the hottest days of the year, in jeans and t-shirt, I was absolutely sweltering, and you didn't really get a chance to cool down once we were in the event. We got there just before 6 and went straight in. So you'll have seen that massive warehouse building. It's an old newspaper storage building, and the whole story behind Storehouse is it is the storehouse of all the digital artifacts from 1983. Now, if you don't know that date, that's when the World Wide Web or the internet started. And so there's a group of people that are looking after and recording all the factual data, all the data elements and everything that's been said, all the news, all the stories. And they have a way of running it through an algorithm to see if the story is true. So they do, there's obviously a lot of stuff in media at the moment. There's a lot of references about current media, you know, the way the newspapers, especially the red tops, absolutely, you know, build up hype and get people really sort of, what's the best way to describe, radicalized in, you know, in beliefs about racialism and sexism. And yeah, the papers are very good at telling people how angry they should be about something instead of letting people make their mind up. And this show did a lot of that. There's a character in it who talks about her father, who was a film lecturer, or he was talking about film studies or whatever, and so showed them some classic horror movies, you know, things like Frankenstein, Psycho, films that you could absolutely study, you know, as a proper way of making a movie. And then we end up seeing the headline of a red top newspaper, you know, something like The Sun or The Mirror, one of those papers, or The Star, you know, and it was like some really gory made up headline that the teacher was fired for, you know, showing horror and sex to children or whatever. And it just shows how the way the media absolutely manipulate us, and have manipulated us for a very long time. So throughout this, there's an ongoing story. We're looking through the storehouse. We're trying to understand what's going on. But there's obviously been a bit of a leak. There's something happening. We're not quite sure where. And although it's not horror related, there are moments of darkness. There are moments of tension. There is, I don't want to give too much away, but the ink starts to come to life. And there's some quite dark concepts and dark ideas in there. And it really pits the people against them. You have like the librarians, you have the people who store the data, then you have the people who actually sort of record it, and then you have guardians. There's a number of different roles, and you're given a little book to explain all of them. And then it comes through to the final story, and there's a lot going on, and there are, at any one time, you start as a small group, and then you meet a few more people, then you meet a few more people. But it would appear that along the way, there were about 2 lots of activities going on at the same time. So by the time we got to the finale, there were, you know, there seemed to be like hundreds of us there in the big finale. The problem that does have is sometimes you can hear feedback and noise from the other room. You could hear things being said, and it was like, it took away the immersion of where we were, because we were in some beautiful sets. There was some really nice design and everything around it. And then you could hear talking coming from somewhere else. It was supposed to be like we're the only ones in that room at the time. The sets themselves were stunning, really well done. I loved the sort of the study that had been overtaken by the nightmares, and it was all like built like wicker, really high towering structure with books all hidden away in it. There was quite impressive sort of mind, sort of memory area. Probably about five or six different rooms that you go through, all story led along the way. There are actors at every point. They're telling you the story of what's going on. You meet different ones, and there's a few clues as to what's going on and what's happening, and you have to make a bit of a choice towards the end. There's some fun technology with lights that change colour. Not quite a haunted lantern, but it's whether you can identify the truth or what's truth, what's fiction. By the time you get to the final thing, and it is probably about an hour and a half experience, you've been through some incredible sets, and then you finally go up, the truth is revealed, and you go up to this top area where you look down, you're raised up on scaffolding above the whole warehouse, and all you can see below you is the sets and the absolute massive building that you've been in. It's really impressive. Unfortunately, it does look slightly like the backside of a scare attraction. If you've ever been inside a scare attraction, they can look lovely inside, but the outside of them. So when you're looking down, you get an idea of the absolute size and complexity and vastness of what you've just been through. But as I say, it does look like some slightly roughly built scare attractions, but it does give you an idea of the scale. There's this beautiful final area where you're standing there and you drop your lanterns back off. And in a really clever twist, they use part of the show and part of what you've said. We've had to be immersive throughout the show. We've had to say things. There's a lot of truth about, how do we as people, how do we avoid being caught up in the lies that the newspaper and the BBC and the media and all those people say? And they asked us throughout the show, and they were recorded and they were played back to us. Not our voices, but they were like what we said, the statements we said were interjected into the narrative, which was really clever. Certainly leaves you thinking. I think we're all aware how manipulated we are by the media. I think it's more relevant now than it ever was. There's a lot of violent hatred going around. As a country, we've never been more divided than we have before. You've got anybody on the left calling people far right. You've got people on the right calling the left is, woke lunatics. You've got people still banging on about Brexit. Brexit happened so long ago, but you still have people saying, oh, we're a Brexiteer. We're not a Brexiteer. We are a very, very divided country. Lots of stuff about immigration at the moment, whether you believe in immigration or you don't. We are very, very divided, and this show has really tapped into that narrative of what we've got, what's happening in the UK at the moment. And it's really, really clever for that. So I'm not sure how long it's going to be around for. It's a great venue. It's an absolutely amazing venue. Apart from it is in the middle of nowhere. It takes a long time to get there. And I probably would not want to be going there in the dark in the winter. It's great in the summer when it's daylight when you walk in, but yeah, it's a non-residential area. Well, it's a non-commercial area. You're going through some houses and whatever. You certainly wouldn't want to be walking around there late at night. That's all I can say in a polite way without being too derogatory of certain parts of London. But apart from that, I would highly recommend it if you have got a chance to go. I think it's running for another month or so. As I say, it's not scary, it's not a horror experience, but there are dark elements to it. And so with that, we're going to sign off, and we will see you at our next event.